Following the two press conferences, we had a chance to speak with Vice Conference Chair of the Republican Conference, Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson. We spoke with him on the rising cost of energy and skyrocketing food prices. Congressman, thank you for taking a moment to chat with us.
Sure.
Congressman, with the Democrats introducing the appropriations bill, an agriculture bill to offset some of this inflation and high fuel prices, what effect do you think this will ultimately have, and will it help?
So far, they've not produced any policy changes that I think that would directly affect inflation in a positive way. They keep doubling down on this big federal spending. You know, any freshman economics student could have told them if you keep printing cash and dropping it into the economy, it's going to have an inflationary effect. And so we're seeing that. It was a direct result of these policy choices, and we don't see them reversing any of that. There may be some progress in an ag bill. I haven't seen the details of that, but from the White House on down to rank and file members of Congress, they still subscribe, most of them, to modern monetary theory. That's what's got us into this mess. They deny the realities of the economy, and we're seeing the effects of it.
Congressman, in your presser here, you mentioned that President Biden, though it was a topic of discussion, is heading over to Saudi Arabia to try to get oil prices down and get their oil. Is this the proper approach, in your opinion?
Absolutely not. I'm from an energy state, Louisiana. From the day that Joe Biden took office, he told us during the campaign that he would effectively declare war on the fossil fuel industry, oil and gas, and he did so. And his policy choices have done that, from the executive orders the first few days all the way through today. And so he's made us reliant upon foreign sources of oil. It's a tragedy. When Donald Trump came in, he said, we don't want to talk about energy independence anymore. We want to talk about energy dominance. And we achieved that. We became a net exporter. All boats were rising. Gas prices were down. The economy was rocking along. And then Joe Biden comes in and does reflexively the exact opposite of all of the policy choices that the Trump administration made. So, again, these are the foreseeable effects of it. What they should do is turn the spigot on for domestic production again. But he's not going to do that because he's sold out and beholden to the radical environmentalist lobby who hate the fossil fuel industry and want us all to switch over to some new form. It's not realistic, and there's going to be a lot of pain until we can retake the majority in Congress and the White House to reverse all this.
A group of bipartisan lawmakers are pushing to screen American investment going into China, a move that could potentially cut off billions of U.S. dollars pouring in to the communist country. Proposed legislation would set up an oversight panel allowing the federal government to review investment into China. American companies would need to disclose new investments in certain industries, such as semiconductors and pharmaceuticals. The proposal is part of a larger bill aimed at securing supply chains. Business groups and the Treasury Department are questioning the proposal, but House leaders are pushing for a vote before the July 4th recess. Illinois Congressman Sean Casten's daughter died earlier on Monday morning. Police in the congressman's hometown of Downers Grove, Illinois, were called at about 6:50 a.m. and said that the 17-year-old girl had already died. The cause of death is still being investigated. The congressman's office issued a statement saying that the family is requesting privacy at this heartbreaking time and will not be answering questions. Casten, a Democrat, is seeking a third term in his district, which has recently been redrawn. And Kelly Sadler is an editor at the Washington Times. She was also a White House aide during the Trump administration. Sadler says that most Americans have moved on from January 6th to the real kitchen table issues like inflation. I had a chance to speak with her recently. Kelly Sadler, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I want to talk to you about that January 6th committee. They're serving essentially as the judge, jury, and executioner. If you're going to be the jury, you need to be unbiased, although they claim it to be a bipartisan.
How is it bipartisan?
Please.
How is it bipartisan? Kevin McCarthy recommended representatives to serve on this January 6th committee. Nancy Pelosi rejected those recommendations. This committee is Nancy Pelosi's own making. Democrats have nothing to run on this fall. They have no agenda. They have no policy. They have no prescriptions for the kitchen table issues that Americans are suffering from today, like high gas prices, shortage of baby formula. So what are they going to do? They're going to run against Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not on the ballot. Donald Trump is irrelevant. Everyone in this country has moved on from January 6th except for Nancy Pelosi.
How do you envision a fair investigation into the January 6th events playing out? What type of stones?
I don't imagine it's going to be fair.
But hypothetically, what type of things would you be looking at or should be looked at objectively?
Objectively should be the chain of command that day and why the Capitol Police were so unprepared to protect the Capitol and who called them off. What did the FBI know and what informants did they have to maybe suggest that there was going to be some sort of protest at the U.S. Capitol? We know in Michigan, the FBI informants knew exactly about what was going on with Gretchen Whitmer and her supposed kidnapping, and that was all planted by FBI informants and agents. So I would like to get to know, what did the FBI know going into January 6th? What did Nancy Pelosi not do in charge of the Capitol Police to get them ready and prepared for this event?
So to your point, what do you think happens if some of those stones that you're talking about are unturned and we look back in hindsight and we see people like Dr. Navarro being, hauled out in shackles? What is that going to do to our country?
Well, I mean, it's incredibly divisive for our country, right? The American people want solutions to their problems. Like I mentioned before, we need to get a handle on the gas prices here. We need to better understand why we're giving $40 billion in aid to Ukraine, that money can't be utilized to protect and secure our schools. There's a lot of things that are going on in this country, like the surge at the southern border, where we have hundreds of thousands of immigrants illegally crossing every day, and Border Patrol agents not equipped to handle the surge. We want some solutions to those problems, and it seems to me like there's very reasonable Democrats who'd like to solve those same issues. Those are the things that Congress should be coming together and looking to solve, rather than going down these very partisan lanes like this January 6th committee.
Do you have your finger on the pulse of Washington, D.C. With the midterms coming up? In your eyes, what is going to be the net result come November?
The Americans, in poll after poll, and these are all public, the number one concern of Americans is inflation. And how do we handle these rising costs? Everything from the pump to the grocery store, to buying a new car, to buying a dishwasher, everything is more expensive, and Americans are feeling this pain. So how do we tackle inflation and the supply chain crisis? I think those are going to be the number one and number two issues for Americans going into the voting booth, and Democrats don't have any solutions other than blaming Putin's price hike.
Kelly Sadler, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Elon Musk is condemning Twitter for not removing accounts that are making death threats against conservative users. A Twitter user recently wrote about a children's hospital in Nebraska that is hosting a children's event. Attendees can make an appointment for gender-affirming care, such as puberty blockers. The account has over 1 million followers and has complained about receiving regular death threats on Twitter. This prompted Musk to criticize the social media platform. The Tesla CEO wrote that, quote, "A platform cannot be considered inclusive or fair if it is biased against half the country," end quote. After Musk's tweet calling out Twitter, asking what they're doing about the death threats, the account being harassed tweeted out a timeline of events showing that Twitter has started to ban the accounts that were making the death threats. Musk will also address Twitter employees in an all-hands meeting this Thursday for the first time since he attempted to buy the platform.